everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Bottom Line. I'm your host, Lauren Khalil. Our show is brought to you by Whoop. May is Sleep Mania month, and we're competing with our friends from Talking Elite Fitness, the Buttery Bros, and CrossFit Mayhem to see which teams get the highest sleep scores. We're all going to be bringing you sleep tips throughout the month, and Whoop is giving out prizes to the top sleep scores on each team. Check out the description below to join our team or sign up to get a free strap and an extra month's membership with our link. On today's episode, we're continuing the discussion of how the CrossFit community can gain trust in CrossFit. And here to discuss the topic is actually our social media manager at Morning Chalk Up, Katie Gannon. And Katie is on the show today because she recently put out a call on social media asking what one action would increase your trust. So many of you responded. Katie, well, let's start with what you think or why you think this was so timely to prompt this question to the community right now.
Yeah, I think we just had this press conference from CrossFit. There's been talk about like certain people being left out or certain people not being invited. And I feel like along with that, there were a lot of questions of like, how do I watch this? How do I listen to it? And I think people are really hungry for communication from CrossFit. One of their main points was that they want to increase trust. So I love throwing out polls to our community and just seeing where people are at with different things. We do sliders and scales and stuff all the time. And I felt like this was, if they're asking or saying, we want your trust back, what does that look like practically?
Any idea of how many people actually engaged with that post and gave their opinion?
Yeah, so we had almost 17,000 views on the post, and we had, I would say, over 500 responses. I stopped counting when
Oh,
I got
wow.
to 200. I looked over at the ticker and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to double it. But I did go through and read every single response. This was far and wide like the biggest response we've ever gotten from a question box. So, a
Yeah,
lot
it seems like it's a question that we keep asking to several different people within our community, but what better than to actually ask the people who are going to affiliates, maybe own an affiliate, are paying dues? How can we really gain that trust back? What would you say was the biggest response from people? You can even here, I'll pull
Yeah,
up what.
we saw a few themes definitely that I feel like you can kind of group the responses into. A lot of people want transparency. A lot of people want more communication. They want more honesty. A few of those responses were specific in like, we don't want politically correct answers. We want the truth.
Hmm.
A lot of people are looking for consistency, and I think having so many changes, whether it's the rule book or the format or whatever, that was an important one. Correcting the leaderboards. I think specifically that's referring to the open and quarterfinals online format from this year. And then a lot of people were asking that like the rules, the standards be upheld, be enforced. There was a call for videos to be publicized. I know that was a format we used to have where anyone could go and kind of thumbs up, thumbs down, or comment on a video. A lot of people want to see that brought back. And then, probably like 10% of the responses said something along the lines of TDC or bring Dave back or something like we want to see Dave Castro. So there was
Sure.
definitely a call for that too.
When it comes to, kind of filtering through all of these comments and the ones that we're pulling up right now, I mean, this is just like a very, very small sample size percentage from what you've been going through the past couple of days. But do you have any idea what the most common response was out of all of those topics that you just named?
I think you can kind of lump them into, I would say, honesty, transparency, and communication. And then upholding the standard, calling for fairness regarding status, right? Regardless of if someone is a high level athlete or not. Um, I would say those are the most common responses. So like consistency in the rules and the standards that are held, holding people accountable for that, and then honesty and transparency from HQ period.
I think it's interesting because we talk about, consistency, transparency. I mean, these are conversations that even during our editorial meetings with Morning Chalk
Mhm.
Up and the rest of our team, these are things that we discuss all the time. So to see the community is in line with what we as journalists also want to see, I think that that's pretty noteworthy. But something else is that people are still looking for the leaderboard to be fixed when it comes to workout 3. Why do you think that that's such a notable thing? And, we're almost months removed from that, but people still want to see a truthful leaderboard.
Yeah, I think that was one of the surprises for me is that a lot of people were calling for leaderboard corrections even now. Um, but it reminds me of a conversation that I actually had with my first gym owner. She reached out when she read the article that Brian and I wrote about the
Mhm.
inaccuracies on the leaderboard. Um, and she just said, like, this is the fittest that I've ever been, but I don't have a number to show for it this year. Like, because her third score was the worst one out of all five, it didn't match any of the other ones. And she just feels like the whole, like that was almost robbed from her, like that number that she was hoping to have, which I think is part of why CrossFit brought in this 10%, right? It's to give a bigger group of people a next level experience. And so we're not just jumping from the open to the elite level semifinals. And to say, sorry, 90% or whatever, the quarterfinals athletes whose videos didn't get reviewed, whose scores didn't get corrected, like, we don't have the time, we don't have the ability, like, it's just going to be incorrect. I think that people felt kind of robbed by that. And I feel like, I mean, I haven't seen that be owned. I don't think other people have seen that be owned. And I think people are just asking for, like, if you're going to decide to not care or whatever, that's what it looks like, then, like, at least own that. At least
Mm.
call it what it is and explain it, because it's yeah, maybe it's not reasonable to ask your, I don't know, 10 employees, 20 employees, whoever's reviewing this, to look at every single video. That's maybe not realistic, but how can you, like, express that and share that and, like, and acknowledge that your community feels hurt by that?
And I think what's interesting is just like glancing over a lot of these responses, I think that they all really go into one vein. And that comes down to communication. If we
Mhm.
had that communication, then we would see that transparency. We would see these things be corrected. We would see consistency with scores and penalties and all of that. So, underlying the communication, and hopefully we continue to have this conversation and see CrossFit HQ, really listen to the community with these cries just to
Yeah.
have a better sport as we continue to move forward. But overall, Katie, as you read these comments, as you, reached out to our community, what would you say is your bottom line with the cries from the community when it comes to
Mhm.
how we can gain that trust back?
I mean, I kind of have two. I have a bottom line for the community, which would be understand that CrossFit is so unique, in that CrossFit is the methodology. It is the
Mhm,
training, like that is labeled CrossFit. So we do CrossFit. CrossFit is a sport, right? Like it is basketball. It is a sport, but CrossFit owns that sport and that fitness methodology, which is the organization, like the NBA. So CrossFit as a whole has so many different legs that make it unique and different than other sports. And so, like, and it's still a baby in the sporting community. I mean, so there is that aspect of, like, yes, they need to do better. Yes, they need to refine things. And also, they are still pioneering in so many ways, which is like, this corporation runs this event, also owns this area of fitness. Like, it's just totally, it's not something that we've ever seen before.
mm.
So that's my bottom line for the community. But for CrossFit, I think I would just say, like, whether it's good news or bad news, people just want news. Like, I don't think that bad news loses trust. If anything, it gains it. Like, having to have uncomfortable conversations with your stakeholders, with your community, with your audience helps them know that, like, no matter what it's going to be, they're going to know. And I think the community at large right now is feeling this, like, we only know what you tell us, and you're telling us this much. And so with the rest of it, we're going to fill with assumptions. Like, when there is this vacuum of voice, or lack of a voice, there is a vacuum for people to fill it with their opinions, their thoughts, their assumptions, and nobody's refuting those. For
Mm.
the presser, like Adrian Bosman straight up said, like, it's really hard for us when we have a video in our queue that we haven't even gotten to yet, and the community is already like all over it, and we're getting tons of requests about it. Um, but we didn't know that. Like, we are, what does that behind the scenes look like, right? How long is your queue? Like, I don't think that we need all the details, but we need enough to know that, like, you do care about upholding the standards. You do care about correcting the leaderboard. And if you don't, you at least recognize that you're not going to, and that you are taking something from the people who competed and gave their $50 and wanted that level of fitness, right? So I think CrossFit just needs to own, like, whether it's good news or bad news, you build trust by sharing it. And you don't always want to be nitty gritty details, but, like,
Mhm.
give us something. Give us transparency. Give us the real. Nobody wants these politically correct answers that don't mean anything. Like, and honestly, it would be better to not say anything at all than to say. Yeah, I mean, like, even as social media, like, I'm going through and trying to find some quotes from yesterday, and it's like, man, this doesn't even say anything. So I
Yeah.
think that people really want, just, like, be real, be honest. Maybe in the old regime that was done a little differently, a little too harsh, a little too crass, but at least we knew where we stood. So I don't know. I think that we can find a balance between the two.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Katie Gant, and thank you so much for sitting down with us. It was a really cool little peek behind the curtain of, what viewers are saying, what people in the community are actually saying. But if you guys like an episode like this, make sure to check out our bottom line episode that will be coming out tomorrow. So a day after this one airs, which will discuss the same topics surrounding how trust can be built back from CrossFit to the community. I sit down with games level coaches John Singleton and Matt Torres, who give their take on the topic. It's one that's not going anywhere. We're going to continue to talk about it. And we're just glad that you guys, as the community, have reached out and given your 2 cents, because we really do take it to heart.
Yes. Thank you guys so much.